Coming up on this edition of Cogeco News, a fatal collision on Highway 17 Thursday night. A protest in front of Vic Fedeli's office by some MEDLAB techs and remembering D-Day 76 years later. Hello again, everybody. Welcome to this Friday edition of Cogeco News. I am Greg Estabrooks. Well, a two-vehicle collision last night has left one person dead. OPP say the collision occurred at 6:15 on Highway 17 West near Jocko Point. Police add that a westbound pickup truck crossed the center line and collided head-on with an eastbound tractor-trailer. Upon impact, the pickup truck became engulfed in flames. The driver of the tractor-trailer was taken to hospital with only minor injuries. However, the driver of the pickup truck was a lone occupant and was pronounced deceased at the scene. Highway 17 was closed for about 5 hours as technical crews conducted their investigation. Local MEDLAB technicians think they deserve to be treated the same as other frontline hospital workers. They want government action now, and to further that demand, they took to the streets on Friday in front of Nipissing MPP Vic Fedeli's constituency office. Friday over the noon hour. Pretty good crowd in front of Vic Fedeli's office over the noon hour. These are MEDLAB techs, and they are looking for a form of equality in both compensation and recognition.
And so they would send out very limited information, and every time we would meet these criteria. So first of all, it was, do you have direct patient contact? Well, yes, these people have direct patient contact all the time. We're in there drawing their blood work. And then it was, okay, but are you in a setting where there's congregation? Well, yes, most of us are in institution where there's large number of people. And then, yeah, but we need people that are in settings where there has to be a problem with recruiting or we're trying to keep staff. And these people, again, MEDLABs, professionals are really under strain. We've had a lot of job positions available for a long time. We are doing all our regular testing, but expected to do now all the COVID testing on top of it. This is not something about a funding. This is a special one-time thing. The government is the one that has decided what the criteria is, how they're going to spread it out. We're saying other provinces have done a really good job of clearly defining why and who they're doing it to. If you look at the one by the Ontario government, it is really scattered about how they have applied it, and it becomes very divisive when you have really low wage earners and your high wage earners in there, but then you exclude some very key frontline people who are the ones actually doing your testing.
And if Rochefort was given the opportunity for a face-to-face with MPP and Minister Fedeli, what would she ask him?
Going to ask Victor Fedeli to come in. We've already written to him many times. We're actually going to invite him into the laboratory and show him what we are about, because we unfortunately have always been invisible to people. We are behind closed doors for a reason because of what we're dealing with, but those test results that you're getting are coming from us.
A response kind of from Vic Fedeli later on in this newscast. Going to be a very busy Saturday for the North Bay Police Service. There are two demonstrations going on in Canada's, Ontario's, and North Bay's answer to protest in relation to the Black Lives Matter movement and police brutality, which germinated in the United States. Local police will be represented at both events on the weekend.
We are there to protect the protesters and also any other public people that will be in the area. So if there's traffic congestion or whatever, we'll make sure that public safety is paramount. We are there to ensure that the protest carries out peacefully and lawfully, and that'll be our presence. It won't necessarily be marching with the protesters, but certainly there to ensure that they are supported in a way of public safety.
Now, of course, the protests that involved the police and were against the police in some cases erupted south of the border. But that was initially. Now some have spread north of the border. Some have called for the defunding of police forces. What does Scott Todd think about that?
My aspect of it as the police leader in North Bay is defunding the police. The first place that when we do not have the necessary financial resources to support our police service, the first thing we look at is the elimination of training and the ability to have training. And I think that's what this issue is all about in racism is we need better training. We need some outside assistance on that too, and we need to have a better community engagement. And I don't think we're going to get there by having less money in policing. And at the same time, I'm not saying we need more money for that purpose, but to take money away from policing right now at this time, when the expectations on transparency and accountability are so high, I think we need every penny that we do receive from the public.
And Todd says the addition of body cams for police officers is a expensive but needed reality even in North Bay.
There's a number of police services across Ontario and Canada that are currently using body cams, and of course the North Bay Police Service will be looking to their experiences that they've had in regards to how they've implemented body cameras within their communities when we go forward with our plan. It's an expensive program. The technology, the acquisition of the technology is not that expensive, but it's the software and the ability to store the data, manipulate the data, and be able to provide it to the various sources that require it. It is expensive. It will require additional human resources within the service to manage it. We've learned that from police services such as Fredericton, which are similar in size and do have a body-worn video program. And I have been there myself 2 years ago to look at what they were doing. Events of the last week in the United States, especially out of Minneapolis, have shown the public that they would like to know more about what the police officers are doing from a transparency point of view. And that's the idea in which Mr. O'Connor asked me on behalf of the North Bay Police Services Board to look into providing an increased transparency.
And again, Todd says the police will be on hand monitoring social distancing as well as being on hand during both demonstrations on Saturday. Moving now to the COVID-19 board for this Friday from the North Bay Parry Sound District Health Unit, COVID-19 by the numbers. 407 tests were done. The change, while still 29 cases overall, resolved 27, 1 death, 1 hospitalized, and right now no one in self-isolation. Moving on to the federal scene, Nipissing and Temiskaming MP Anthony Rota was asked by our Clark Heipel a number of questions about what went on federally this week and maybe internationally this week, starting of course with Canada's reaction to the Black Lives Matter movement, which has gone not just from the U.S., but gone into Canada and really all over the world.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau made national and international headlines for a 20-second pause before answering a reporter's question concerning the use of military force against protesters in the United States. This after George Floyd died on May 25th. After being pinned down by Minneapolis police.
Well, I think what happened to Mr. Floyd, to George Floyd, south of the border is despicable, and it's unacceptable. And the Prime Minister's response about what's happened down there and the response to it, I think the silence said it all.
Locally, there will be rallies tomorrow. There's 2 rallies planned, one in the afternoon, one in the evening. Will you be attending?
I encourage everyone to take action. And unfortunately, I will not be attending. And basically, as I was telling the organizers, I've been encouraging people to not encroach on each other's 6-foot radius. And just to be on the safe side, I don't think it would be a good example to set by being there. And as a public figure, people come to you and they want to shake your hand. They want to say hello. And it's just not the example to give. I encourage everyone who does attend to be very, very conscious of that 6-foot radius around them and make sure that we don't spread COVID-19, but Black Lives Matter to all of us.
What was your message to the organizers? Likely they're reaching out to you for support.
Proud of them. I mean, it's nice to see that it's going on here in North Bay, and I've seen causes go before and people come out, and it's great to see people come out and make a difference. I wish I could make it.
Is racism a problem in Nipissing-Temiskaming?
Racism is a problem everywhere, and it's not only racism, it's bigotry. It's people who think they're better than somebody else. And when you see something like that happen, every Canadian should stand up and put an end to it right then and there and say something, because there's nothing worse than just sitting passively and letting things happen. So when we talk about racism, we talk about bigotry. If somebody makes a comment, don't let them get away with it. call them. Don't be ignorant about it. Don't be nasty like they are being, but just let them know that, you know what, that is not something that is acceptable in Canada.
I think one reservation that people have is they're worried about things escalating, becoming violent physically or verbally. How does someone kind of walk that fine line between correcting someone and keeping safe?
It's a very good question. Just use your judgment. And a bully will try to intimidate you, will try to push you, but if you stand firm, but don't fight back, because that is a dangerous situation to get into.
Ontario promises more business openings and some rule changes next week, but the government really isn't leaking specifics right now in regards to that information. To talk about that issue and more is Nipissing MPP and Minister of Economic Development and Trade, Vic FEDELI. FEDELI joins us from Queen's Park via Skype.
Stage 2, the Premier will announce early next week, and he'll describe at the news conference which businesses will be included in Stage 2 and when that will actually kick in. And that's intended to give the businesses enough time to make sure that they can go on the Ministry of Labour website, understand what their requirements are going to be, and go on the PPE website and make sure, including the North Bay Chamber's website, make sure that they have adequate sources of personal protective equipment as required.
I want to ask about the fact that, say, in British Columbia and in Alberta, the positive tests are way down, under 50 in each province, yet in Ontario and Quebec, the numbers are still very high. Isn't that a concern in regards to opening more businesses?
Well, we are the largest province, and we did 22,000 tests yesterday alone. So we're in that big testing number now. So we know that we do everything with the safety and well-being of the people of Ontario first and foremost, and that all of our decisions are weighed with the Chief Medical Officer of Health. So that's why we've been opening gradually and carefully the businesses that have been selected to be opened.
There was a protest by medical laboratory technicians about wanting to get, I guess, more compensation and also get recognized as an essential service. And they told me they have been in contact with you. Have those discussions gone anywhere?
I can say, first of all, thank you very much to all the frontline workers who have given so much to this. It's because of their great work that we were able to flatten the curve in Ontario, along with the sacrifices made by 14.5 million people in Ontario who gave up so much over this time. But our thanks to the frontline workers. We have put pandemic pay out for 350,000 frontline workers throughout the province of Ontario. And that is the fact that we're so grateful for the work that they have done.
Okay, I'm going to try to ask that question one more time and see if you'll give me a more direct answer involved with the MEDLAB techs. Have you talked to them? Will you be talking to them?
I can say that we're very grateful for all the frontline workers right across all of Ontario, and for me personally, especially the ones in Nipissing.
So that's a non-answer answer. Is that fair to say?
I can tell you that I've been, I have spoken with one of them over the phone recently, and that I would make their case to our cabinet. But I know that we have advanced frontline pandemic pay to 350,000 workers in Ontario.
Saturday, besides being my mom's birthday, happy 80th mom, it is the 76th anniversary of D-Day, and we'll talk about that with some people who are reflecting as well right after this. Saturday marks 76 years since the Allies stormed the beaches of Normandy, of course, in France, signaling the beginning of the end of the Second World War and the Third Reich. Well, many veterans of that war have passed on. The memories of that very important day and their incredible bravery will stand the test of time. Clark Eipel has more.
Eisenhower, commander of all Allied troops, released this historic letter to boost morale as the troops were ready to invade Normandy. The second paragraph really tells the story. Quote, "Your task will not be an easy one. Your enemy is well trained, well equipped, and battle hardened. He will fight savagely." Unquote. The Allies lived up to the challenge, and that signaled the beginning of the end of the Second World War. Calendar Legion Branch 445 President Mark Picard is a veteran of the Canadian Armed Forces. He stresses the significance of remembering.
Well, as we sort of start to lose all our World War II veterans, it's very, very important that we continue to remember. Sadly, this year we're not going to have a chance to do anything really formal, so we're all going to have, a silent reflection, and we're all going to remember all the sacrifices that those veterans made for us. Last year we lost Len Guppy, Comrade Len Guppy. He was one of our most prominent World War II veterans. So we always reflect about Len this time of year. Obviously, we've named our ball fields in memory of Len, and we put up a new sign to commemorate that, and he was able to see pictures of that before he passed.
When Canadians enlist into the Canadian Armed Forces, they put their lives on the line for their country. In some cases, those lives are lost much too soon.
Well, there's always a danger to forget. We wish we didn't have to remember all the sadness. We wish we didn't have to remember veterans of past times, or of the helicopter crash recently, or the snowbirds crash. We don't want to have to remember any veteran, but we will always remember them.
Calendar Legion Second Vice President Brian Villeneuve is a veteran of the Canadian Armed Forces. He served in the artillery of the Canadian Army. He remembers the men and women who've served before him, including the brave men that stormed the beach on June 6th, 1944.
There were so many plannings to do, all right? The Allies, the only in Europe were in Italy, and they were having a heck of a time there, all right? The major attack on D-Day, putting enough forces from the Allied side to make the war end within a year. Without that, though, it would have went in 46 almost.
Is there a danger for the younger generation to not know the history and it be forgotten?
Yes, it would be forgotten. There is a bit of a danger to it. I know when I was in high school, we never even knew about it. That was but then, I don't think the veterans at the time, they were all, younger, and they didn't want to talk about it at all. So we didn't really know anything about D-Day or anything.
And how will you be commemorating the anniversary tomorrow? Just a silent reflection? Will you be thinking about...
Well, there's going to be enough things there on television there, History Channel that there, and I normally watch those.
Carrie Ems loves art and loves teaching art. Ems has put that skill to work during the pandemic. She helped encourage some young child artists to paint non-medical masks, with some proceeds going to local charitable organizations. And through that, it will also be used as a multi-tiered fundraiser.
Set was that I work with children, and we've been doing a lot of online art classes since our studio had to close, and we're opening a co-op that we haven't been able to do anything with. So it was a way to keep people engaged, was to do all these projects. So I kind of hand bomb supplies off to their balconies or decks or whichever when I can. Pauline Brown from Brown's Moving was sewing masks, and because I'm somebody that has to be careful and wear one out in public, we thought, let's do something fun for the kids and for myself. So I had bought a couple from her and went to paint them, but realized, pleats and stuff are hard to, so I came up with the idea. I said, if I get them from you almost done, drop them off to the kids, have them paint them, bring them back to you, can you finish sewing them? Yeah, no problem. And then the kids came up with the idea of doing it, I pitched doing like an auction or a sale, and the kids came up with giving the proceeds to All Heart Pet Rescue, so one pet charity, as well as the Gathering Place, so one people charity. So I've kind of left that up to them, and we're going to set it up as an auction.
That auction will be held sometime in the next 2 weeks.
So we've got, I believe, 51 masks to paint. We're going to list them on our website as well as on Facebook. and have an auction going from there. We've got an auction site that we'll list. But it'll be on Agape Designs on Facebook as well as agapedesigns.ca. They're safe and wearable. There's a slot in the middle for a filter, so you can actually put an insert in them. They're double-sided. They come with the elastic on them. They're hand-sewn.
And one of the youngsters helping out is a 10-year-old student named Claire, and she was refreshingly honest about why she painted flowers on the handkerchiefs that will become PPE.
'Cause they're easy and I like them. It makes me happy. And I think that I'm doing good, and that's good.
It is good. Will the weather be good? Clark has the weather forecast and much more right after this.
Weather is brought to you by Canadore College. Great things happen here.
A little bit of seventh heaven on this Friday. Well, welcome back to Cogeco News. I'm Clark Heupel here down in Callender. I am here for your 5-day weather forecast brought to you by Canadore College. Also here to remind you and to suggest to wear red on Fridays to show your support for the men and women of the Canadian Armed Forces, past, present, and future. And speaking of the past, tomorrow marks the 76th anniversary of the Allies storming the northern beaches of France. Now on this Friday, it is the 7th installment of Streets You Didn't Know Existed. And yes, I gave away the town that I am in. I'm in the municipality of Callender. Now this street, it's not paved. 3 houses on it, and it curves around Catherine, and it leads to Lansdowne, which goes to the municipal wharf. There are, as mentioned, 3 houses on it, not paved, and there's unlikely to be a traffic jam at any point in time. I am standing on First Street. Just a spectacular day on this Friday, and a little bit of rain in store for Saturday before the sun returning on Sunday. Let's take a look at that 5-day forecast brought to you by Canadore College. Heading overnight on this Friday night, we have a risk of a thunderstorm with a low of 11 degrees. Winds moderate and picking up speed at 30 kilometers per hour as that potential storm moves in. On Saturday, the 6th of June, the 76th anniversary of D-Day. We're going to have a high of 19 and chance of showers, and then a clear cold relative of 7 degrees above freezing. On Sunday, that high pressure system stays in with sun, high 20, low 10, going to be a nice day to golf. Monday now, the 8th of June, high 21, low 14, sun and cloud. And Tuesday, the 9th of June, hot. 28 for the high, 16 for the low, sun and cloud mix. Turning the page back to the almanac on Thursday, we had a high of 21 and a low of 7. The normals for this time of year, 22 and 10 for the high and low. Well, there you have it. There is your 5-day weather picture. Do stay tuned. Our Greg Esterbrook will have your sportscast right after this very short break.
Okay.
Sports is brought to you by Tag Construction for all your construction needs.
Unfortunately, not a lot of sports to talk about, but yes, if you're looking for a laugh and you're incredibly bored, the Granite Club tennis courts, Sunday afternoon, 2-ish. Again, if you're really bored, we could be there. That's it for news, weather, and sports for the week. Have a great and safe weekend. We'll see you again for more Cogeco News Monday, live at 5.